Hope you guys are having a great Sunday afternoon and is all energized and prepared for a productive week. I just wanted to jump on here and to talk a little bit about potential. So I was having a conversation a couple of days ago with one of my very, very dear friends. And the conversation was centered around her son who had graduated high school a few years back and had initially started college right away, but then decided to take some time off because he was feeling a little overwhelmed and I guess just needed some clarity on what he really, really wanted to do. And so my friend was a little agitated and frustrated because that that time off has now turned into 2 years, 3 years. And so as she was expressing her frustration and her agitation, she kept saying, he has so much potential. If you would only see it, he has so much potential. And as she kept repeating it over and over, it brought me back to a trip that I took with my husband last year. So last fall, we had taken a trip to Charleston, South Carolina, just for a few days. And while we were on that trip, we took a horse carriage tour around the city of Charleston. And while we were on that tour, the tour guide, is that what you call him? Tour guide, carriage driver, I don't know. But let's go with tour guide. The tour guide, as we were passing this historic church and historic graveyard, he asked a question and then proceeded to answer his own question. He said, where is the richest place on earth? Right? And then he responded, he says, it is the graveyard. Why? Because it's the place where millions worth of dreams, untapped, are buried. And so I reflected on that for quite a bit as she kept, referring to her son and exercising her frustration, right? And so I want to talk to you today about potential. You see, oftentimes when you hear people say, you or someone else has potential, it's usually interpreted as a compliment because it is an indicator that there's something great and impactful within you, right? That can have a great impact on the world. But what good is that potential on the inside of you, right? I equate potential to purpose, right? It's what we were created for. And if it's on the inside of us, the world doesn't have the opportunity to experience it. And so what will it take to emancipate that potential, right? What would it take to emancipate that greatness that is within you, right? Which leads me into my foundational belief, right? My foundational belief is that we were all created to create progress for the world and humankind outside of ourselves. It has nothing to do with us. I think as a byproduct of us living our purpose, that we get to live a more fulfilled life and to experience a lot of the desires that we want for our lives, right? But our primary purpose is to create progress for humankind and for others outside of ourselves. And so for that reason, that primary reason, we were all given gifts in terms of talents and skills, right? To execute, so it smells so right, to execute or release that potential and that greatness that is within us, right? And so I believe that there are three primary things that stops us or blocks us from emancipating our potential or our purpose or our greatness, right? Emancipated because if it's on the inside of us, we're imprisoning it, right? So what will it take to release it, right? And those things are 1, fear, 2, self-doubt, and then 3, toxic thinking, which is to me the equivalent or you often hear it referred to as limiting beliefs. Now, when it comes to the fear and the self-doubt, I strongly believe that our goal should be to learn how to push through them. Why? Because I believe they can be indicators, right? So it's a catch-22. Yes, they are blockers if we don't manage them appropriately. But I believe the goal should be to push through them because they are indicators that one, greater is required of us. And number two, that we are actually attempting to step outside of our comfort zone. At a point where we're feeling uncomfortable, and the self-doubt is creeping in and the fear is stepping in, it means that we are attempting to do something great, something beyond what we have ever done before. And so I believe the goal with fear and the self-doubt should be to manage them and learn how to manage them and to push through them to get to that next place, right? However, when it comes to limited thinking, I believe the goal there should be to eradicate limited thinking, which is synonymous with toxic thinking. What does this look like? I think I'll give you a personal example, maybe from my career, in terms of how limited thinking showed up in my life before. And so, before I redefined myself, by the way. And so, it showed up in my career. So for those of you who don't know me personally, I've been practicing public accounting for the past 20 years. In essence, I audit companies. I audit company financial statements and primarily their financial statements before they file them with the SEC. And so this example I'm about to give you is back when my first promotion from a staff to a senior. Now, in terms of how public accounting works, you start as a staff, you do a few years as a staff, then you progress to a senior, then from a senior to a manager, then from manager to senior manager, then to partner. And that's the top level within the hierarchy of the firm. And so it was my senior promotion. And at the time, I think one of the normal protocols were that we each had a mini session with one of the HR partners or maybe our counselors, etc., to kind of talk about the next steps and the next level, and just to make sure that you were on board with the responsibilities that would then be yours once you got to that level. And so I was in this partner's office, and I remember she asking me how I felt about my promotion, and I literally talked myself out of that promotion in her office. And the reason I gave her was, at the time, I was assigned to a manufacturing client. So think about a manufacturing client, they have inventory. Inventory is probably one of the primary processes, right? Their primary streams, because it's how they make their money, right? Their inventory times whatever their price is, that's their revenue. That's their revenue generator. And so I was a bit intimidated to audit inventory because I had not had up to that point any experience auditing that cycle or that process. And so I was fearful of a staff, like me assigning that area to a staff, and the staff may have questions and then I wouldn't be able to respond to those questions because I did not have experience in that area. And so I sat in this partner's office and I told her that, I think I needed some more time, right? I needed some more time to, take some classes on inventory and how to audit inventory and the intricacies of inventory and, all this BS that came out of my mouth in that meeting. But in true essence, my limiting belief was what was controlling me at the time. Now, I didn't know it at the time. I knew I was fearful. I knew what I was feeling, but I didn't define it as a limiting belief. So in essence, she obliged me and they gave me another year before promoting me to senior. Why do I tell you this? I tell you this because sometimes our limiting beliefs are subconscious, right? And our limiting beliefs can be quite expensive, right? That promotion cost me money, right? It was a significant increase from what I was getting paid at as a staff to what I would have been paid as a senior. So for an entire year, I gave up that significant jump in salary. And then not to mention the subsequent years, right? Because then each year you get a promotion or you get a raise in pay above what you were earning before. So that limiting belief cost me money. And so, in essence, our toxic thinking and our limiting beliefs imprison our greatness. That belief that I didn't have what I needed to lead a team, and primarily, whether it was inventory or another area, that was a limiting belief that imprisoned my greatness at that time in my life. And so I think it's very important that we identify these limiting beliefs because, hey, it could be costing you too. And so I want to leave with you three, I don't want to call them strategies, or three tips to eradicating your limiting beliefs, right? Number one is to identify the belief, right? You cannot change something that you are not aware of. So it is important that you identify what your limiting beliefs are in whichever area of your life. Could be your relationships, could be family relationships, it could be romantic relationships, it could be your career, it could be you wanting to jump out of a career working for someone else and transition to working on your own. Identify what it is that is stopping you from going to that next level in your life. What is the desire or that signature life that you have desired for yourself, and what is stopping you from embarking or taking that step, that action step towards that life that you want for yourself. So number one is identifying that limiting belief. Number two, or second tip, is evaluating that belief. Is it true? Is it factual, right? By chance, did you create or formulate that belief based on incomplete data, incomplete information that's not factual, misperception? That happens, right? So evaluate that limiting belief to determine if it's true. And then number three, your third tip is, if it is not true, which most likely it is not, right? Because God is not a limiting God, and He doesn't create us to limit us. Okay? So I'm just saying, you have a limiting belief, chances are it's not true, and it's not rooted in God. And so if that limiting belief is untrue, you redefine it based on facts and give it wings. So in my example of my limiting belief, I redefined it to, I will be a great leader because I am resourceful. And that was true, right? I didn't have to know all the answers. It was more important for me to be resourceful, to know where to find the answers. I already had all the qualities in me that I needed to lead. Being a leader is not about having all the answers. It's about being resourceful, being able to motivate, encourage your team members, and helping them to progress to the next level, helping them to find the answers, helping them to release their greatness, helping them to show up authentically, helping them to grow, right? So I had already had within me all that I needed to be a leader, and I was resourceful. I knew where to go for the answers. So I redefined my limiting belief to, I would be a great leader because I am resourceful, and I have all that I need within me and all the resources I need around me to be successful. And so I want to challenge you today to kind of go back and think about the desires that you have for your life. What is that next level you want? And number one, identify what is stopping you. Is it a limiting belief? If it's a limiting belief, evaluate it. Is it true? Is it factual? Is it based on facts? Is it based on complete data? Is it based on new data? Or you created that some time ago based on old data? And then number three, redefine it and give it wings. Giving it wings means you take action steps, right? Because action is going to create the momentum that you need, which will then build the confidence that you need to keep growing and to keep going. And so I hope this encourages you today to tap into that potential and release it, because the world is waiting on it. If you enjoy this message, I would love, love, love if you would share it with someone else. And I would love to hear your feedback down below about your thoughts on this topic and potential. All right. Thanks, everyone.